Hey everybody, welcome to Brick Vault. Today we are reviewing the X-Wing Starfighter set. It is set number 75218. It is 730 pieces, sells for $80, and it's primarily the Starfighter as the main set. There's no other outside builds really. We've got two sets of pilots, which is kind of nice. It's Luke Skywalker R2-D2 and Biggs and R2-Q2. So that's a new astromech droid there. There's lots of fun things to point out. The build for the Starfighter itself is really nice. There's lots of things that I like. It is overall a very, very good improvement. I would say the best X-Wing set for sure out of anything else that has been released by LEGO. And first though, I'm going to get into the minifigs because we have some very cool features with these guys. All right, so taking a look at the figs first, you got to take a look at Luke. You always got to start with Luke. But the main thing here to notice though is the mold for the helmet has actually changed. This is the first time they've decided to change the base mold for this type of Rebel pilot helmet before. They did add a visor piece before without changing the mold of the helmet really, but this is actually a new shape, which is really nice. The printing is it's very colorful. It pops super, super well. It feels a bit more cartoony. Also, the ridges here pop a bit more. They feel a little bit more cartoony and more pronounced, which ultimately just feels a little bit more Lego-y, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of nice. Also, the visor is very thick. You can see it's very thick. It kind of has a magnifying effect on the minifigure print for his face. There's Luke's face here. There's Luke's face here. I'm not sure if that's exclusive or not. I'll have to check the collection. I have a feeling it might not be, though. But ultimately, yeah, very cool. I like that they updated the mold for the helmet, and so yeah, this is Biggs. The body is the same, which makes sense. They're wearing the same flight suit, so they don't need to make different prints for the body, and really it's the helmet. So we've seen this helmet before, at least the print for this helmet before, because we've gotten Biggs as a fig in other sets, but very big prints. Like the helmet just feels bigger, that ridge is bigger, and all of these parts of the helmet are very, very pronounced. So that's cool that you get to see everything really, really pop in a kind of fun, cartoony fashion. This is Biggs' face here. This is Biggs' face here. He's a little bit happier, a little bit more gristled, taking on the Empire. And then moving on to R2. R2, there you go. His print might be updated as well. Somebody confirm that for me in the comments. It just feels a little bit cleaner compared to maybe some of the other R2s. The head does look the same. He's got, I think we've seen that lavender indicator light before, and then you move back. They really don't need to be updating R2 anymore. In fact, I've been saying this for a while, but they really should start printing stuff onto the back of astromechs. I don't think they're gonna do that. Good looking R2, but I think most of you guys would be more interested in R2-Q2. I believe that is the name of this astromech. So the body is dark gray and the rest is done in that nice sort of metallic mold. And yeah, the print for the head has that bit of white strip printing. It's actually kind of offset compared to the black line, and that's usually what happens with these types of head molds. Things always get a little bit off. Lego's gotten better, but you know, you still have those funny prints there. The head is definitely cool. The body feels pretty intricate as well. And for us as collectors, this is definitely the guy that we're a little bit more excited about compared to just getting another R2. But let's move on to the fighter. So, all right, the fighter has lots of nice features, but first let's just get into kind of the fun aesthetics, like looking at the shape of this model and just kind of admiring the angles that the designers managed to achieve. Now, they've done this before. In fact, the nose looks quite similar to what we've seen from the Resistance X-Wing fighters, both Poe's Resistance and just kind of the regular Resistance X-Wing fighter. I'll do a little bit of a comparison with all of our X-Wings at the end of this episode as well. So a lot of the differences you're gonna see, sort of the updated detailing is really with the wings and the build for the engine. So we have some wonderful pieces in here. I believe that is the ice axe, ice climber, ice pick axe that's kind of in there to make that fun detailing on the inside of either of the engine intakes, so to speak. And then everyone was saying, especially during our live stream bit of the build, look at the back, build the back looks so good. And they're pretty right. So you kind of push that in there. So you've got these fun, these are really old, that's a really old mold. Usually these came in trans colors and stuff, and they're used in space sets, but they're here in white. And you know, on those hinge pieces, it makes that great sort of hexagonal shape there. We've got some details with some pistols and things like that. And then there's this. This is that very big obtuse looking thing that kind of sticks out, but it serves its purpose, right? So that is gonna lock your S-foils out. So that's really nice. The S-foils, like the angle is great. I know that they really try to make sure to get the actual angle now of the wings opening and closing as close to the proper angles that you saw from the actual movie. The earlier versions of X-Wing models were just kind of close enough. So that's kind of nice that you have that close bit there. There's some really nice detailings here. You can see the rubber band pieces kind of hold everything up. That little thing that opens in there, let me show you. When I close it, there's actually kind of a snap function, so let's see how quickly you can see it. And I think I shot one of the shots out. It closed so hard, that's funny. Anyways, yeah, so it's really easy to get that thing to kind of snap forward, and that thing pops out. This thing pops out when it's there. Honestly, you'll be flying around and playing with this. This sticking out the bottom will look a little bit funny, but I don't think you're gonna notice it for the most part. And you're like, why is that there? Well, it's because when you put it down, normally, there you go. Actually, I put it down too softly. Let's try that again. Maybe, it's supposed to be like when it lands, right? So if you put it down and it lands, it's it's pretty snappy action. Normally, you actually see when they open and close the S-foils, they don't open and close like with these really harsh clicks. So it feels a little bit odd, like seeing that action come together so much. It's kind of a fun aesthetic feel, like it's a fun tactile experience. You know, you get to fly around and then it snaps closed like that, and I just knocked off one of the engines. But ultimately it is a fun function to kind of play around with. I think most people might want to have, oops, let me actually build that off camera. Yeah, it had just sort of fallen below the table. But anyways, yeah, the experience is cool. Like they played around still with how the wings open and close. I know that a lot of previous models have just different approaches on how to do that. This one's fun. It's not sort of reflective on how maybe the actions would work within the Star Wars universe, but I think as a play set, it is kind of fun to have that sort of snapping wing function, and it is kind of functional that it would close automatically on landing to close down. So that is kind of nice. They kept, I think, a lot of this stuff. You know, this is still, I believe, the same general, it's the same general build for the landing gear, and this is kind of just what the whole model looks like from beneath. So I hope you can get a good idea of what this thing looks like just from an aesthetic point of view. Let me zoom in a little bit closer to the cockpit. And first things first, the cockpit windscreen print has changed. I like this in the nice trans clear and the sand blue print, and it makes it pretty easy to get your minifigure pilot, Luke Skywalker, in there. He fits in just right. There's lots of space getting him in and out. You've got the one detailing there on that little cheese wedge piece, and he fits in just right. So that's kind of nice. And then, of course, you can fit R2 or any of the astromech droids right in the back, and this would be what the model looks like when he's kind of all kitted out. In terms of action functions, we've of course got our spring-loaded shots. Woo! It slides right up the light side there for our little table here. But yeah, so you can shoot your 4 shots, and then of course you've got your 2 little stud shots on the side. This is also reflective of the last Resistance X-Wings. I don't think you normally had those weapons on the X-Wing. And when these things are sprung in there, they do look a little bit funny, but when they're out, it actually looks pretty good. The front having it needs just a little bit more. I know in previous models they had dark dish pieces attached in with the guns to kind of just get that sort of, it's not really a satellite dish. Really, you would want something that looks more like a crescent moon. Yeah, this doesn't actually bring the look home either. So there would be I think hopefully a nice way at some point for maybe you to modify the front of those guns to just feel a little bit more accurate than they do. But ultimately, yeah, that is it for the base overview. I'd like to now compare this X-Wing with some of the previous models. Just kidding. Before I do the comparison, I just want to point out this one little, it's a 2x3, it's a 2x3 tile with a sticker. So this shows the 5 stripes there. That means this is Red 5, and that's because Luke is flying it, but you can also replace it with the 3 stripes. That is if Biggs is going to be flying your X-Wing. So that's kind of a nice little addition. These are 2 little spare parts for either wing. So let's do this first comparison first. We don't have the exact oldest X-Wing, but at a certain point it's like, why even compare the oldest X-Wing? This one looks pretty good still. I think the nose dimensions, especially by the snout, is definitely not as good. And I think, of course, the biggest difference is the build for the engines here just looks fluid beyond any degree than what any of the older sets could look like. So it's just kind of fun to see the comparison, also just to see how much more yellowed, and not really yellowed, but definitely a lot more dusty this is. You can see it kind of picks up a little bit better with the white backdrop compared to our newer one. But let's maybe compare this to the Resistance. And now you can see that the similarities, especially by the nose, are very, very much the same. The dimensions are almost exact in a lot of ways, all the way leading up towards the build for the engines. And of course, you're going to see a much bigger difference just because the actual intakes are a completely different shape, and the top of the ships are funny because there's just a totally different approach on how to open and close the S-foils. It's funny, each of these models, the last one included, just has a completely different approach on how to approach, the opening and closing of the S-foil action. So the wings and everything are going to be a different shape, the engines are, but I just thought it might be nice to see how the front of this and the front of this are almost exact in a lot of ways. But that isn't to say it's bad, it's just like, this is a really good shape, and they just decided to stick with it. I can see why they stuck with it. Now for the last comparison, I decided to bring out Mike Saki's old X-Wing design. This is what a lot of custom builders now base their X-Wing designs off of. Mike Saki is now, I think, the lead Lego Creator designer. I think he's actually the lead designer on the Lego Creator team. And this is supposed to be perfect minifig scale, and the dimensions here are pretty darn awesome. I mean, there is something you can achieve by keeping your model a bit more delicate and focusing more on just kind of the general aesthetics of the build, because especially now you can kind of see the difference. This is a much more accurate build for what you could get for the ends of the larger blasters there. So anyways, yeah, ultimately this is good. The things that they did with this set that worked is they just kind of made it feel like fun, like a toy. This doesn't really make sense as an action, I think. Just kind of, you know, them snapping closed. It'd be cooler if they snapped open, you know what I mean? Like the last build, there was a function where you twisted the wheel with the Resistance X-Wing. So this is, you know, it's just a different way to play. I think it's fine, and I like that they just tried something new. I think it works, and there's definitely some fun building designs here that work, and it's pretty much just a good swooshable, playable X-Wing that absolutely looks better than any of the previous play models, at least for this type of X-Wing. It's pretty much on the same level of quality that we would have gotten, that we did get for the Resistance X-Wing, either Pose or the blue one that you just saw. So in conclusion, I would say this is a fun build. It's $80, 730 parts for a Star Wars set. For what you're getting, I would say that's expected. It's obviously a little bit over maybe what some of the other part to price ratios for different types of themes would be, but I think it delivers on what it was advertising. It's the X-Wing, it's a classic ship, it's probably one of the most recognizable ships from not just the Star Wars universe, but any type of sci-fi, fantasy sci-fi based universe ever. And they did a good job. It's a good toy, it's a good looking model. I feel like people would not really have to modify it very much in order to make it even more of a display set. You could definitely cover that up if you weren't happy with the way that looked You could play around with the blasters a little bit if you weren't happy with the proportions there. But ultimately, yes, I'm really liking the way this turned out. Oh, hey everybody, hope you enjoyed that video. I just wanted to pop in really quick and say that we do have a web store, brickvault.toys, that sell instructions for super high quality MOCs that are built by incredibly talented designers. So that is the first link in the description below. And also there's other videos too. We've got other things if you want to watch that. All right, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.